In today's world, naivety and innocence are often mistaken for ignorance. They're mistaken for weakness or even stupidity. Hmm? But this is a misjudgment that is rooted in ego and survivalism. Hmm? What most people call naivety is often untouched simplicity. You know, it is a state of being that hasn't been corrupted by overexposure. It hasn't been corrupted by fear or even the need to perform for social acceptance. Huh? Innocence is not a lack of exposure. It is a conscious decision to remain pure in perception despite exposure. Huh? So look at innocence or even naivety as inner clarity. When someone is naive, it means they are not hyper-conditioned by external expectations, manipulation tactics, or even cynical survival patterns. They move through the world with openness, with trust and sincerity. Not because they are unaware, but because they have chosen to preserve their inner clarity. Innocence is not stupidity. It is clarity untainted by the trauma of fitting in. Huh? In a world where cynicism is often glorified as intelligence, many people harden themselves to feel safe. They lose their innocence not because they outgrew it, but because they were conditioned to abandon it. They traded purity for performance. Exposure is not always wisdom. You can be highly exposed, you can be worldly, and still reactive, still bitter and paranoid, or even manipulative. That's not clarity. That's trauma dressed as experience. True wisdom means knowing what information, what people, or even energies to let in, and which ones to let out, or even to release. So yes, you can be deeply exposed to reality and still remain naive. That is if your naivety is no longer based on ignorance, but alignment. It is not about how much you know. It is about how much of what you know you apply intentionally. Much of the world's what we refer as sophistication is actually ego-driven. It is a need to perform identity in order to belong. People adopt sarcasm, people adopt judgment and even emotional detachment just to be accepted. But naivety in its purest form rejects that performance. It says, I don't need to be hardened to be intelligent. I don't need to be bitter to be wise. I don't need to conform. I don't need to conform to noise just to feel like I matter. Now that is power. That is intentional naivety. That is spiritual strength. When you remain innocent by choice, despite what you have seen or even lived through, then you're not behind. You're way ahead. Because you have mastered the art of not letting external noise dominate your inner voice. The art of choosing peace over performance. The art of responding instead of reacting. This kind of naivety is rare. It is not passive. It is awake. It is the kind of energy that disarms manipulation because it's unshaken by the games. Being naive in a chaotic world is not ignorance. It is resistance to ego. It is choosing simplicity over noise. It is choosing alignment over approval. And most importantly, it is choosing yourself even if the world calls that foolish. The truly wise people, they're not always loud. Sometimes they're the ones who always look untouched. They look unbothered and even innocent. Because they have remembered what the world forgot. That peace, my friend, peace is more powerful than performance. My people, heal. Heal.